Yeah, when I'm in a sanctuary, I usually say, "Can anybody not hear me clearly?" But if you can't hear me on this, you can't hear me at all. So, so everybody can't hear. It looks like everybody seems to be acknowledging it. So I think we're okay. All right. So anyway, first and foremost, I want to say thank you all for being here, and I want to welcome all of us beautiful, beloved, empowered children of God. Now, I wrote the shortened version of it on here because Rick and I are supposed to do some testing beforehand. We just didn't get to do that, and I was going to add the more to it later. I'd like to ask you to please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate. And if you need to take a call, I guess it's okay because we can't hear you because everybody is muted. You're welcome to ask questions throughout the workshop, and we'll take a break about midway through. The workshop should be about 2 hours, okay? Yeah, all right, so. All right, so anyway, I like to start out at the beginning, and the beginning for me is always being aware of the divine presence. So I invite you to get comfortable in your seat. And with your eyes open or closed, just be aware that we are in this vast sea of divine energy. It's all around us, above us, below us, in front of us, behind us, to our side. And this presence, this energy, is literally the presence of love. And it's an open energy that is very receptive to our personal energy. And this loving energy is also within us. So we have this divine energy outside of us. We have this divine energy within us. So as we become more aware of this divine presence around us and within us, we open our minds and our hearts to this presence. And we acknowledge this presence. And one of my very favorite affirmations that I say every morning is, "Thank you, God, for this beautiful, marvelous, glorious day." So I'll say that in sections and invite us all to say this together out loud. Now, you don't have to, unless you want to, you're welcome to hit your space bar and say this, or you're welcome to just say it to yourself. This is going to be a very different workshop experience for all of us. I've never done a workshop like this before, so we're going to be learning together. So anyway, the morning affirmation: thank you, God, for this beautiful, marvelous, glorious day. Let's say that together. Thank you, God, for this beautiful, marvelous, glorious day. I open my mind and my heart to your loving presence. Together, I open my mind and my heart to your loving presence. Infinite wisdom clearly guides me this day. Infinite wisdom clearly guides me this day. Our next affirmation: divine love richly blesses me. Divine love richly blesses me. So thank you, God, for your loving presence, guiding and blessing me. Thank you, God, for your loving presence, guiding and blessing me. And last one, thank you, God, for a great workshop. Together, thank you, God, for a great workshop. And so it is. Okay, well, this will be interesting. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to ask you, if any of you came with any particular questions that you want to have addressed today, and if so, let me know what those are right now, and we'll go ahead and do our best to answer everything that we need to cover. Okay, with that resounding response, we're just going to go ahead and move right into it. I take an unofficial survey. I would like to know how many of us believe that prayer is answered 100% of the time, no exceptions. You just raise your hand if you believe that. Eight of us. Okay. Well, 9 of us. I didn't count myself. Okay. How many think prayer is sometimes answered and sometimes not answered? How many? Let's just raise your hand for that. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Okay. Half as many. Okay, that's good. And how many don't really know, hadn't thought about it, and don't really care? Ah, okay. So let's see. 8 and 4 is. Okay, so now this last one's going to cover those of you that didn't raise your hand. How many of you are not going to respond no matter what I ask? And that'll take care of the people that didn't respond at all. And there's always a group of those as well. And so we have 2, 4, 16, 18, 19. We have 19 people, and we had 8 and 12 responses. So that's not too bad. That's actually a pretty good test group. Okay. So anyway, in the early 1980s and the 1990s, have any of you ever heard of Frank Giudice? Anyway, Frank Giudice was the chair of the Bible department at Unity Village. So everybody who was in ministerial school, we had Frank for Bible. We took Bible for an entire year. And one of the questions that Frank used to ask on his committee, okay, to get into ministerial school, we had an entire day of testing. Then the following day, we had to go before 2 different committees, and the 3 committee members on each group, each committee group had 3 members or 4 members, and they would just fire questions at you, and you had to respond to them. And Frank used to ask this one question that used to actually kind of throw ministerial students off. Now, I didn't have Frank for this committee, but I heard about this. He would ask, "What is the law?" And basically, most of the ministerial students would say love, and some would say forgiveness, some would say kindness, some would say compassion. And of course, that wasn't what Frank was looking at. Frank was looking for the law of attraction. Now, have you all heard of Unity's 5 principles? They used to be called 5 precepts. I don't know if have you heard them as precepts or principles? Somebody answer that?
Principle.
Okay, all right. When I got into Unity back in the 70s, there was 5 precepts, and that went through the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. It was sometime after 2000 that it changed to principles, and I don't know when that happened. But the bottom line is the 5 principles. Have you all heard the 5 principles? Okay, I got 3 people shaking their head and the rest aren't responding. That's normal. Okay, so basically the 3rd principle is called the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Have you all heard that one? Dear ones, that's another way to restate the law of attraction. The law of attraction is the largest dynamic in the entire physical universe. It governs everything from the movement of galaxies, which consists of billions and billions of stars, to the movement of subatomic particles and everything in between. That's the law of attraction. And it's really the greatest dynamic in the universe. Now, we humans use the law of attraction whether we realize it or not. And this is why Unity has this 3rd precept, the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. If you think about that, That's literally telling you how the universe works. As we think, so we experience. Scripture says it this way: be it done unto you according to your beliefs. Now, it doesn't matter if your beliefs are right or wrong. Basically, it's basically that's what's gonna happen. Okay, so anyway, we use the law of attraction whether we know it or not, whether we understand it or not. And some metaphysicians simply call it the law. It is that big and that encompassing of everything. So anyway, there's many names for this. There's a lot of different names for it too. Okay, Unity calls it the law of mind action. The most common name nowadays is the law of attraction. What are some of the other names that we've heard? Anybody want to throw some other names out? Can anybody hear me? Is anybody awake? Okay, when I ask a question, you're welcome to respond. Do you know any other names of the law of attraction? Have you ever heard of the circle of life? Have you ever heard of karma? I mean, these are, as you sow, so shall you reap. Have you ever heard of that? Folks, these are all different ways of saying the law of attraction or the law of mind action. These are all different terms, and there's several ways that we know this phenomena by. But anyway, okay, one of the things about the law is that people who understand it to whatever level, they know how to direct their energy more effectively and use their energy more wisely than some of us. So for decades, I've been doing this workshop for several decades, and basically what has happened now, this, I started this back in the early 80s, and back then we didn't have internet, and I certainly didn't have internet. I didn't get internet until I got into after ministerial school, after I was actually ordained. I had a computer, but I wasn't on internet. So the bottom line is, when people had profound experiences from our workshop, they would take the time to write a letter or a note and send it to me. And that went on for the first 20 years I was doing the workshop. So what happened is all these letters, most of them are in a file storage box, which got full over time. And then the internet came out, and so people would start sending emails. But when people would share their tremendous life experiences, several people had physical healings, several had relationship healings, several people had gotten more work. One lady went from mediocre sales to where she skyrocketed to be the top salesperson in her international company. I actually found that out years later. The letter she sent me just said that, she skyrocketed to 98%, where she used to be in the mid 70s, after attending this workshop and applying the techniques that she learned in it. Now, she underlined the word applying. Okay, so I'm not making that part up. That was exactly how she said it. So the bottom line is, the tools that we're going to learn in this workshop are very powerful tools if you use them. Okay, it's kind of like electricity will light up a room when you turn the switch on, but you got to turn the switch on, right? Nothing happens if you don't turn the light bulb on. Okay, so anyway, the bottom line is, it's all about that. So the big picture of life here on Classroom Earth, all of us come in as infants, and infants are like sponges. They take in everything that is said, everything that is observed, and whether it is fact or fiction, whether it is true or false, they take everything in and it goes into their consciousness. And it is all stored in our master computer, which is our consciousness. Now, our consciousness includes both our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. So we have to be aware of that. So before we get into grade school, pretty much all the children have had tons of bad programming stored in their consciousness, both the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And as children, well, let me ask this. Have any of you ever taken a magnifying glass and used it to burn a leaf on a sunny day?
Yep.
You focus the magnifying glass and the light just kind of focuses on a one little point on the leaf, and eventually it starts smoldering, and then eventually it'll start burning. Have any of you ever seen that or done that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, a couple of us have. All right, this is good. Well, I want to share with you the difference between understanding and using our energy wisely and not using our energy wisely. And this is really the reason why people who've attended this workshop and apply the techniques that we share in the workshop have these miraculous things. People have actually, I've had over a dozen people call it miraculous too. Well, one lady said it this way: Ron, had I not taken your workshop, what happened to me, I would have called it a miracle. But because I attended your workshop, I kind of expected something like this to happen. And as you understand the flow of life and the whole process of the law of mind action at a deeper level, it'll be crystal clear for you. Well, anyway, the reason people have had some profound experiences with the workshop material is okay, everybody pretty much is radiating energy out to the universe. You all heard of an etheric body that outlines our physical body?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is actually hard because I'm so used to having people respond. So yeah, when you're answering a question, please tap your space bar and give your answer. Anyway, what it amounts to is a light bulb gives off energy 360 degrees by 360 degrees. It goes in all directions, okay? And this basically is called diffused energy, or we could call it scattered energy. I like Einstein, so I use his abbreviation for energy. Okay, anyway, so a light bulb gives off energy in all directions. So that's diffused energy or scattered energy. Could you guys read the board okay? Is that clear?
Yes.
I can see it. Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, now, the people who have taken this workshop basically have done, that's what the people that have written to me, actually more than that have written, very few people actually take the time to write, okay. Okay, if you take this same light energy, this exact same light energy, and you put it into a single focused beam that is now called single phase energy, or it's called focused energy. And that energy is now also called a laser. And that literally cuts through just about everything. Metal, glass, you name it. Okay, so the same light energy, when focused, becomes a single phase, and that is so powerful because it is focused energy now. That's the same thing that happened when we had that magnifying glass when we were kids, and we held it over a leaf on the ground, and the sun just shone through it. It focused it into a single beam of light, would start the leaf smoldering and eventually burn it. And so this is how empowered us humans are. We could take our energy, and if we focus it, as Jesus said, we could move mountains. or remove mountains, which is what he was actually talking about. So anyway, most people on Classroom Earth run around doing this with their energy, and the people that are wise, and usually it's spiritually aware people, a lot of them are spiritual masters in a lot of the different disciplines, they really focus their energy and they are able to move mountains. If you look at, are you guys familiar with Mahatma Gandhi?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He literally is the only person in human history who literally took on the most powerful empire of his day and made major changes in two countries of all, well, eventually became three countries. He got England, which was the most powerful country pre-World War II, to literally relinquish control of one of their territories. and he did it all non-violently. Just an amazing man. There used to be a saying that the sun never set on the British Empire. And the reason was because no matter where the sun was shining, Britain owned property there. Not owned, they basically controlled it. It was one of their territories. And they had that throughout the entire globe. That's how powerful England was at one time. And Gandhi, just by being firm and focused on his cause, he was able to get Britain to let go of control of India. And actually made major changes in South Africa too before he even went to India. So anyway, it was just an amazing story. So anyway, people who use the law of attraction wisely actually operate as a laser. Their energy is focused, and that is very empowered energy. So okay, as we use the law more wisely, we become more aware of a power that is far greater than our personal self. I call it the divine. Some call it God, Great Spirit. There's a lot of names for this power. My most favorite definition of God is love. So I use love or unconditional love interchangeably with the term God. And whatever we call our highest power, it is within everybody. Every one of us has this divine presence within us, and literally we are empowered to have complete dominion over our world. If you go back to the early early book in Genesis, where God created the birds of the air, and there's the birds of the air, the fish of the deep, the cattle of the land, and basically God said to Adam, I give you dominion over everything. And the bottom line is the everything that God gave us dominion over, if you look at it metaphysically, boy, oh boy, I'm jumping into a lot of stuff that I don't know where you guys are. Does everybody here, have you ever heard that the Bible is your personal story? Kyle and Marilyn and Marilyn,
Yes.
do you all know that the Bible, everything in the Bible represents an aspect of ourself? Does everybody know that?
I heard that last time you spoke. It was the first time I heard it.
Thank you for reminding me. That's good. Yeah, I kind of remember telling you guys that, but I don't know how many of you are here. Okay, the bottom line is the birds of the air metaphysically represent our fleeting thoughts. The cattle of the land represent our habit patterns, which we are so susceptible to everything out of our habit patterns. The fish of the deep are the things that are in our subconscious mind that we don't even know is in our subconscious mind, which is so powerful. But God said we have dominion over all of that stuff, our fleeting thoughts, our habit patterns, our subconscious programs. So we are literally empowered beyond what any of us really realize, and even more than any of us actually act. Okay, so the bottom line, it's really important to understand how empowered we are and how much dominion we have over our energy and how our energy affects everything we experience. And so that's very powerful stuff. So this divine presence that is within us, as we put this divine presence first, as we put love first, we live from a higher level of awareness. We become more centered in all life areas and in all life situations. The more empowered we become, the more focused our energy becomes, thus the more beautifully our life improves. So I would like us to affirm together, the more I focus my energy, the more empowered I am. Can we say that together? The more I focus my energy, the more empowered I am. The more empowered I become, the more my life improves. Let's say that together. The more empowered I become, the more my life improves. Dear ones, empowered people work more efficiently, more effectively. Their work performance increases. When their work performance increases, generally their income increases. And I actually did a count many, many years ago of the testimonials I was receiving, how much we're healing, physical healings, how much are relationship healings, how much more work. By far, the majority of the testimonials I was receiving were increased income. Because as you become more focused with your energy, your work performance goes up. And as your work performance goes up, generally your income goes up. Okay, does that make sense? How about a thumbs up?
Yes.
For those that are shy about talking, okay. Thumbs up will work. Okay, this is good. Okay, our guarantee throughout our entire workshop history has been this. Do the work and your life improves. There are no exceptions. So dear ones, I touched base very briefly on this lady, Maria, who attended my workshop in Dallas, Texas. It was at a very large Unity church. Have any of you ever heard of Frank and Margaret Ponders? Okay, you know,
Yes.
I'm going back quite a few years. Anyway, Margaret wrote a couple of books. I don't know if Frank did or not, but anyway, it was their church, and I was there, you know, I did their Sunday service, and then I did our workshop. But Maria attended our workshop in Dallas. This was in 1989. And several months later, she sent me a letter telling me that she's a fitness instructor, and her company grades them on how many people sign up for the next series of classes. And she stated that she had always been mediocre, and then in parentheses she wrote mid-70s. That was her percentage of people that would re-sign up. Her next sentence stated this: after attending your workshop and applying, and she actually underlined the word applying, your techniques, I skyrocketed to 98% and have been in the 90s ever since. So that was such a great letter that I photocopied that, and when I sent out my package to the Unity churches to offer to do my workshop with them, that was one of, I sent about a half dozen testimonial letters. You know, I photocopied them and sent half a dozen or so. Several years later, I was very honored to be a featured speaker. Did you guys know that Unity Village used to have annual healing symposia back in the 90s? None of you guys know. Okay, anyway, they used to do that throughout the 90s, and I was actually honored. I was there twice, 1992 and 1994. Anyway, Maria attended either the 92 or the 94 one. I don't remember which one, but at one point, the Unity Inn is right next door to the chapel where our workshop was being held, and so the inn had this beautiful cafeteria, great food, and they had the tables that were seating 8 or 10 at a table. Just sit at any table, and everybody was. It was a very high level of camaraderie and love and friendship and fellowship and all that stuff. Anyway, I'm standing in line to go to the cafeteria, and Maria reintroduced herself to me. This was several years later now, right? And when she said she attended my workshop in Dallas and her name was Maria, I said, "Are you the Maria that sent me the letter about skyrocketing to 98%? And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Maria, I tried to reach you. I actually called the minister. called Frank. I could only read her first name, though. Her handwriting was so bad I could not make out her last name. I said, her first name is Maria. Her last name starts with an M, and that was all I could tell. But it was so bad I couldn't tell any other letters. Anyway, Frank had no idea who it was, so I just blessed it and figured, well, she sent it to me. So even though she didn't give me approval, I stuck that in my packages to, get other bookings with my workshop. Anyway, make a long story short, I told her that, and she said, well, did you know the rest of the story? I said, what's the rest of the story? She said, didn't I tell you what happened? I said, that was the only letter you sent me, Maria. She says, that year, after she skyrocketed to 98%, she went on to be the top salesperson in her international company, and she was awarded a brand new car. And I got so excited. I said, Maria, why didn't you send me that letter? I would have used that one too. Anyway, the bottom line is, folks, this stuff works. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with using principle and using the law of mind action wisely. Okay, so that's what it's all about. So basically, the benefits of becoming more empowered, their additional benefits are you're more considerate of others, you're more loving toward yourself, you communicate more clearly with others, your relationships are almost always enhanced, you see a bigger picture of life, and you live from that higher awareness. And that's really important, and it's really good. So, empowered people are more open to the flow of life energy. They live a higher level of health, a higher level of wholeness. They effectively slow the aging process. And that's a very powerful thing too. So the good news is everyone can become more empowered. We're all not only capable of being empowered beings, we already are empowered beings. We just may not know it yet. We may not have grasped it yet. So we are already created as empowered beings. Okay, so at this point, does anybody have any questions on anything that we've covered so far?
No.
A couple people are shaking their head no. I heard
No.
one. All right, and nobody had any questions at the beginning, correct? I didn't shortchange anybody, correct? Okay, so that sounds good. All right, dear ones, we're going to continue now unless anybody needs a break. Okay, here we go. We live in a world of energy, and basically scripture several places tells us do not judge by appearances. So the perfect example of that is that everything is made up of energy. Even things that appear solid, like this dry board, this table, your computers, anything you look at, windows, I mean, all of this stuff, basically they are pure solid, but everything is really continuous energy in motion. All energy is in motion all the time. So the two types of energy that we're going to be dealing with in our workshop are all right, the two types of energy that we're going to be dealing with. Okay, we have visible energy. All right. I think I was getting ready to make a Visa purchase there. Is that right? Visible? V-I-S-I-B-I-L-E. Visible energy and invisible energy. Okay, so the visible energy would be things like this ball, the board, the wall, the chair I'm sitting on, your computers, headset, radio, TV, all that kind of jazz. Invisible energy basically is things that we can't see. Would be things like water vapor, gases, radiation, things like that. So the invisible energy has several different levels, and beyond that, there is also mental energy, emotional energy, and spiritual energy. So there's several different types of energy. Now, if as we understand that, as we shape our thoughts, we basically have life experiences where we are using our energy wisely or misusing our energy. And I'm going back to Unity's third principle: thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Let's all affirm that together. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So we have dominion over our energy. So as we control our thoughts, our words, and our actions and bring them into a single focus rather than the scattered light bulb thing that I was illustrating, we basically enhance our focused energy to the point where it is very empowered energy, like the magnifying glass focusing the sun's energy into a single beam where it could burn a leaf or start a fire. So let's affirm: I have complete dominion over my personal energy. Let's say that together. I have complete dominion over my personal energy. I use my energy wisely. I use my energy wisely. So today we're going to learn the dynamics of personal energy, how we shape energy and how we direct energy, and how most people mostly misdirect their energy unknowingly. So using our energy wisely is the secret to achieve higher levels of health, happiness, fulfillment, living life more abundantly, and yes, my favorite term, living life in bliss. All of us deserve to live a life in bliss. So it's all good. So could you all handle bliss? Just nod your head yes if you agree with that. Okay, several of us are doing that. That's excellent. So anyway, health and wholeness flows throughout our being as we allow life energy to flow freely throughout our body temple without blocking it. And that's basically one of the biggest disconnects, is we literally thwart life energy by our thoughts and by our words and by our actions. And so we're going to get into this. When we effectively put our body at rest, as in meditation, which is one of the highest and fastest ways to heal ourselves, by the way, basically, not only does that kind of harmonize everything in our body, but our body has the ability to renew itself at a higher level. In fact, there have been doctors that are part of the American Medical Association that have acknowledged that our body is so remarkable that if we could take it out of stress for a long enough period of time, our body will heal itself of any affliction known to humankind. Any affliction. If we could take our body out of stress for a long enough period of time. Now, the trick is, in especially our Western society, we have such overwhelming levels of stress that we don't even know what a zero line is. In other words, let's call this zero, no stress. Okay. Our life is kind of like this: high stress, low stress, high stress, low stress. Well, over time in our society, especially how inundated we are with more and more information, and more and more requiring more and more speed, and more our Western society is geared in this direction. So what basically happens is, in the early days, 1800s, early 1900s, basically things started going like this. And so what's happened is, this is the real, okay? And this dotted line is what we now think is no stress, but because we're so skewed from the normal that our society literally has moved into higher states of stress. And when we think we're not in stress, we're still way above zero. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but what I'm saying is, most people don't know how to take themselves out of stress, and one of the most effective, powerful ways to do that is meditation. So meditation, in my opinion, actually, a lot of spiritual leaders talk about this, is to pray and meditate. In fact, Jesus used to tell his disciples and people to go apart a while by yourself and just rest in the presence of God the Father. And what I've always thought was very amazing once I got into Unity is that so many churches talk about praying and meditating. Most of the denominations don't do meditation. I've been to services in almost every denomination. My son-in-law is a Lutheran minister. They don't do meditations. I've been in several of David's churches. They don't do meditation. Of course, I came out of Catholicism. We never did meditation. We talked about it and we acknowledged it, but we never did it. So meditation is a very, very powerful tool. And that was something that both Charles and Myrtle were very, very big on. Of course, Myrtle had her tremendous healing through meditation. You all know that, right? Everybody here knows about Myrtle healing through prayer and meditation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Majority of people are shaking their head yes. We still have some that don't like to respond, and that's okay. It's all good. We're all part of the same spiritual family.
Yes.
Rick's trying to make up for the ones that aren't responding. Thank you, Rick. It's not necessary though. It's all good. So anyway, the bottom line is, prayer and meditation is a very powerful way to move into a higher awareness of your divinity and to live from that awareness. And that's basically what our journey is all about. So as we become more aware of our dominion over our energy, we take more responsibility for our energy and we choose to use our energy more wisely. Okay, so any questions on the last couple things I covered?
Nope.
Boy, you guys are either very advanced or very shy. And
We're
it's okay.
advanced.
You're advanced. I
advanced.
like that. Thank you very much. I like that. That feels
That's
very
okay.
good. Okay, now we're going to do something that I actually, this is something that is very, very powerful in our workshops. I've never done this online before, so this is going to be a very interesting experience. Let's see. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to invite Rick, Janet, Leslie. It says Will family. Who's Will family? What's your name, dear? I can't hear you.
Gay.
I'm
That's
sorry.
Gay.
What is it?
Her name is Gay.
Okay. Gay. What you need to do, hon, is just hit your space bar and you could talk. Could you hit your space bar? Wow. Rick, that's not working. What's going on? How come she can't?
There.
Oh, there you go. All right.
I
Just
Excellent.
unmuted it.
Okay. Now this is going to be important because we're going to try something. Again, this is a first for me as well as this ministry. We're going to do some an energy exercise. And so it's going to be Rick, Janet, Leslie. Is it, how do you spell your name? Is it G-A-E? Gay?
G-A-Y.
Oh, Gay. Okay. Let me write that down. Gay. All right. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Lucinda, you're part of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Barb, you're part of this too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, here's what we're going to do. The 6 of you are going to be open to receiving energy. I want you to feel the sensation that you feel and just be comfortable in that space and relax in it. And after you just let it resonate with you for a few seconds, I'll invite you to just thank your sisters and brothers, and then we'll move on to the next group. Okay, now the rest of us, Eve, Lori, Tracy, Kelly, Jackson, Marilyn, Warren, Juanita, Marilyn, Chris, Jim, and Susan, all of us are going to direct energy to these 6 people. In fact, I would encourage you to direct it to their pictures as we're doing this. I'm going to lead us in an affirmation for these folks. Okay? Does everybody understand what we're doing? Any questions?
No.
We're good. Okay. So now the rest of us that are going to be directing the energy, I'm going to invite you to, and I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to try it. We're going to all hit our space bar when you repeat after me. Okay? So all of us are going to jointly say these affirmations to the 6 people that I mentioned. Are we all on board?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I like that resounding response. Okay. Here we go. Now this is toward Rick, Tom, Leslie, Gay, Lucinda, and Barb. Okay. Oh, last thing. If you're familiar with the YOUers, one of the easiest ways to direct energy is through the palms of our hands. So a lot of times when they do blessings, and when a lot of people in unity do blessings, they do it thusly. And actually Jesus was depicted as doing it that way too in scripture as well. There are several ways you can direct energy. You could just say the affirmation. You could direct energy through your third eye. You could direct energy through your heart chakra. There's many ways to do this. One of the easiest, though, is through the palms of your hands. And oftentimes people sometimes even feel energy when they do this, even if it's the first time that you're experiencing it. So anyway, I'm going to invite us now to direct our energy to our first team, which is Rick, Tom, Leslie, Gay, Lucinda, and Barb. And just please repeat after me. Dear ones, we know who you are. Dear ones, we know who you are. You're God's beautiful, beloved, empowered children. You are God's beautiful, beloved, empowered children. We love you.
We love you.
We love you.
We love you.
We bless you.
bless
We bless you. We appreciate you.
We
We
appreciate
appreciate you. We behold the divine in you.
We behold
The divine in you. Thank you, God, for these dear ones.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, God, for these dear ones. And so it is. And now you guys could go ahead and just thank your sisters and brothers.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you all.
Okay, now we're going to go with Kylie, Juanita, Warren, Lori, Tracy, and Marilyn. This is Marilyn Freed, okay? So you 6 are going to receive. Just allow the energy to come to you. Feel whatever you feel, and you'll be sharing later on if you choose to share. And just let it resonate for a few seconds afterward, okay? And the rest of us will again direct energy to these 6 beautiful, beloved, empowered children of God. Okay. Dear ones, we know who you are. Dear ones, we know who you
Who you
are.
are.
You are God's beautiful, beloved, empowered children. You are God's beautiful, beloved,
Love,
empowered children.
children.
We love you.
We
We love
love
you.
We love you.
We bless you. We bless you.
you.
We appreciate you. We
Appreciate
appreciate you. We behold the Christ in you. We behold,
We behold
the Christ
the Christ.
in you. Thank you, God, for these dear ones.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
God,
Thank you, God, for these
For these
dear
dear
ones.
ones.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And now, please feel welcome to thank your sisters and brothers.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, now we're going to go with Eva, Marilyn Holloway, Jackson, Chris, Jim, and Susan. So you're just going to receive energy, be aware of it, just feel it, let it resonate with you after we finish our affirmations. It'll resonate within you for a few moments, and then I'll guide you when to thank your sisters and brothers. So let's go ahead and focus on this last 6. Dear ones, we know who you are. Together, dear ones, we know who you are. You are God's beautiful, beloved, empowered children. You are God's beautiful, beloved, empowered children. We love you.
We love you.
We love you. We bless you.
We bless
you.
We appreciate you.
We
We
Appreciate you.
We behold the Christ in you. We behold,
the
Christ in you. Thank you, God, for these dear ones.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, God, for these dear
for
ones.
these dear ones.
So it is.
It's
And so it is.
and
And
so
so it
So it
is.
is.
Now, dear ones, you're welcome to unmute and thank your sisters and brothers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Everybody's welcome.
welcome.
Now, this is the first time I've always known what the responses were going to be every time I've done this for the 30 some years I've been doing this workshop, or maybe 40 some, whatever it is. This is the first time I'm actually going to be very curious. What was it like? What did it feel like over the internet? It's like, man, tell me about it. Share with me. Share with your sisters and brothers. How did it feel?
I felt a tingling sensation on my skin.
Wow. Awesome.
So did I.
I felt lighter.
You felt lighter. Who said that? I felt lighter. Oh, okay, great. Lori. Great.
I felt uplifted.
Uplifted. Okay, good. Good,
I
good.
feel my shoulders relaxing.
You felt your shoulders relaxing. That's excellent. Yes.
I felt a warmth.
Ooh, neat. Yeah.
I felt peaceful.
Yes, yes, yes.
I was more peaceful.
Beautiful.
Just a question. Is that kind of like a oneness blessing? Was that
Okay,
sort
hold off
of
on the
like
questions for a second. Let's stay with the feelings. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that in just a minute, Lori. So anybody else want to share? Okay, was there any difference between sending and receiving? Did you notice any difference in the energy between sending and receiving?
No,
I did.
Okay. Can you elaborate at all?
Well, you know, when you're sending it, I can feel the energy coming from my hands.
Okay.
Receiving it, I didn't feel it quite so much, but we did have a huge storm all of a sudden whip up when you guys were sending us energy. And I thought, well, wait a minute.
Well,
You guys are really
well-
powerful.
Well, divine energy is in storms too. You know that, right? Divine energy
Yes,
in
yes.
storms too.
Yes, I thought they were doing a really good job.
blessings falling through the sky right now.
Oh, beautiful. Boy, this must be a heck of a big storm because it's been storming here all day too. It's been going off and on, but it's been raining nonstop, literally just drizzling all day long, and it's overcast. So it's interesting. So it
Here.
must be there. Okay, Lori, you had a question?
Well, I haven't participated in oneness blessing, and I was wondering if it was anything like that.
Well, anytime you do a blessing, and especially when you do a group focusing energy, they're similar. The energy is about love and peace and harmony and warmth, all the things that you folks just described. That's all inclusive in blessings. That's all part of the blessing. Because it really is all one. It's a oneness, everything. All love is a oneness. Oh, and by the way, when I do this workshop, like in a mystic bookstore or at various different organizations, I oftentimes, instead of saying I behold the Christ in you, I'll often lead people to say I behold the divine in you, because divine is probably a more inclusive understanding for people that aren't in unity. Now, unity people generally know, and in case you don't, I'm going to let you know, that Christ is not Jesus's last name. Does everybody know that? Okay. Christ was the awakened level of consciousness he achieved. And that was really clear if you go back to where Jesus is asking his disciples, who do they say that I am? And then who do you say that I am? And Peter's one who said, thou art the Christ, the anointed of God. And Jesus did his statement, thou art Peter, and on this rock, which Peter means faith. Thou art faith, and on this rock of faith I will build my church, and all that stuff. So anyway, but most unity people, at least after they heard a couple of my Sunday lessons, they know that the Christ is the divine that's in all of us. It's the divine presence, okay? If anybody didn't know that, now you've heard it at least once or twice. Oh, very good. Does anybody have anything else you want to share on that energy exercise?
I just felt really peaceful.
Yes. Okay, so now what does that experience let you know? What are some of the insights you could glean from that experience we just had?
That you are a child of God, blessed, and loved.
Yes. Very good. Thank you, Warren.
For me, it was the feeling of going into a very holy place. It was entering that stillness and that holiness. It's like, which I guess is touching the divine.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. It's actually expressing the divine too. It's being aware of the divine and expressing. I love it. Thank you very much, Marilyn Holloway. Yes. Very good.
That focused energy can travel through space and time and over the internet.
Yes. Thank you. Who's saying that? Wave a hand. Who said? Lucinda. Thank you, Lucinda. Yeah, I'm looking at 16 faces plus two just names, so I have to see where the sound is coming from. And sometimes I don't see the lips moving because I don't get there in time. Okay, what's another insight you might get from this?
Well, I was surprised that the energy came through over the internet, because I've been very skeptical about internet flowing from a distance, energy flowing from a distance to me via the internet. And I was very surprised that through the internet, I felt it going both ways.
Beautiful. Yes. And so you felt it going both ways. So what additional insight does anyone have on what she just said?
I think it goes.
I mean, when you think about the internet, it's a universal thing anyway. Internet itself is an expression of, in the sense of the divine, of energy flowing everywhere.
Yes. Beautiful.
It might not feel very divine all the time. But
well, actually, it is divine. You may be out of sorts and not feeling divine, but blessings are all. Okay, here's where I was looking at. Do you guys have a prayer box in your church?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if you use it every Sunday.
Yes,
yes.
The bottom line is that lets you know unequivocally that when we do prayers for the people that have prayer requests in our prayer box, that energy is going to them.
Right.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
That's why silent unity works. Because prayer for others works even over great distances. Isn't this exciting?
Yes, it is.
So you've experienced from distances blessings. You've sent blessings distances where you've gotten feedback that people have felt it. They felt warmth and peace and all the things that you guys have said. It really is powerful stuff. And this is how we use our energy wisely. So this is exciting. I don't know, maybe it's just become a minister, I get excited about this stuff, but I think it's very exciting. It's all good.
Yeah, for me, what that proved is we don't actually need the internet. The only reason we're saying it's through the internet is because we're seeing and hearing each other. But
Yes,
we send that energy through time and space without the internet. It's just a confirmation that it's.
You're absolutely right. And the reason we're on the internet is because this is a workshop and you really need a way to hear me and I need a way to hear your questions and we do our affirmations together and all that. So the internet is the tool where we're communicating, but our energy is going with or without the tool. And that's a very good point, Marilyn. Thank you.
I think it goes back to what you said earlier, as we think, we experience.
Yes, this is really good. All right, so let's do whatever energy I send out to the universe. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, wrong affirmation. I create my life's experiences by shaping and directing energy. This is where we're going. I create my life's experiences by shaping and directing energy. And so here's our affirmation. I'm going to give you an easier one. I shape and direct energy wisely. Together, I shape and direct energy wisely. Yes. Einstein said we live in a friendly universe, and Einstein was right. The universe is friendly because it always supports our energy. And there's another aspect to it also that I'm going to get to in just in the very next section. But the universal energy is a positive energy. There's a very slight positive to it because it's all divine energy. Okay? So just be aware of that. So whatever energy I send out to the universe, you all know this, that the universe always says yes to our energy? Does everybody know that? Okay.
Yeah.
Be it done unto you according to your belief. That's the scripture way of saying it. Okay. Everybody good, or any questions on anything we've covered so far? All righty. Beautiful. All right.
Can I just interject something here?
Absolutely.
Edgar Mitchell, when he was in Apollo 14 orbiting the moon, did an experiment with people on Earth. And it was determined that the psychic people that were receiving his message psychically, there was no delay. There was actually a radio delay, but there was no delay in the thought process that he gave.
Mm-hmm.
So not only was there perfect reception from 250,000 miles away, but it was instant.
Yes. Yes. Very good. Very good.
I want to add something here that, that accords with quantum theory and the theory of non-locality.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right in accord with what is known in modern physics, that non-locality. Which is a oneness. It's like we're all part of one thing, so everything is happening at once, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my favorite books is by Richard Bach. It's called Illusions. I don't know if how many of you have ever read Illusions. It's a beautiful, mind-expanding book. Okay, two people raised their hand. Awesome. So 3 of you read Illusions. That's great. But he actually wrote another book where he was actually using his plane. He was going in and out of. He would kind of go into the water to a different time in a previous life, and I can't remember the name of that book. I read the book and I enjoyed the book, but my favorite of all books was The Illusion. So that's the one I really remember. I actually read that book probably more than a dozen times in the first 10 years that I had it. Oh gosh, if I think of the name of it before our workshop is over, I'll let you know. But it's an interesting thing because it was that all of this stuff was happening at once. All these different lifetimes were happening at once. And he was consciously aware that he was going into a different lifetime. He would go in, his plane went in the water somehow, if I recall correctly, and basically he would be in a different body in a different lifetime in a different setting and all that kind of stuff. It was really interesting. I can't remember the name of that book though anyway. But Richard Bach, he had some really good books. He also wrote, for those of you that remember this, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. That was his first big bestseller. Yeah, but Illusions by far was my favorite of all. That was a great book. He is the nephew. Have any of you ever heard of Marcus Bach? Marcus Bach is a world-renowned scholar of the major world religions, and he wrote different books on it. And what he would do, he didn't study world religions and write about them. He literally immersed himself for like a half a year into the Buddhists and a half a year into the Hindus and a half a year into, he lived with them and incorporated everything about that major faith path. And so when he wrote from a very high level of experience and knowledge into each of the major faith paths. In fact, he wrote a couple of books for Unity, or Unity published them. I'm not sure which, but he wrote one of the early books that I wrote. Oh, Unity, A Way of Life, I think. Unity, A Way of Life. very early book about unity, a way of life. I think that was Marcus Bach. Anyway, that came out in the 60s, and I happened to get a copy of that book, and that was a really good eye opener for me to unity, and that was part of the thing that made me very excited about this faith path called unity. Yeah, interesting stuff.
I think we might have that book in our library.
Really? Wow. Okay.
I'm not sure, but I'll look into it.
There was actually he actually did a second edition of it many years later, and I can't remember. I'm almost going to say it was in the 80s, and I got that book as well, and I started rereading it about a month or so ago, and I recognized that was not the first book. It's his first book was more unity, what unity was all about, and it was such a freeing, uplifting organization that I became very open to unity. This next book the one that I'm reading now, the one that was the second edition, it's more of his opinions about a lot of stuff, and a lot of his just more of his thoughts about things instead of unity itself. In other words, he's doing a commentary on some of the unity teachings, which is very different than the original book that I read. But anyway, it's all good. So if you do find it, Richard, it's the I want to say 1962 or 66 was the first edition that really turned me on to unity. Yeah, I was actually right out of college when somebody sent me that book, and I was amazed because in my senior year of college, I had gone to several different faith paths because Catholicism was never doing it for me for many, many years. But, when I was living at home and my mom and dad were all, I'm coming from Italian heritage, so we're Catholic basically. And I was told to go to church on Sundays and all, even though I skipped many Sundays. But mom and dad never knew that I didn't get to church. My brother Rick and I used to cut church and go to like the downtown and just goof around and get into all kinds of mischief. We basically, and then we'd come back home, and mom and dad they'd never asked us anything about what church was like. That never came up. So anyway, Catholicism wasn't doing it for me at all, but it was all good. Okay, questions on anything we've done so far?
I'm needing a break.
Okay, let's take a. Oh, actually, yeah, we're well over an hour, so let's take about a 10-minute break. And thank you. Who said that, by the way?
Lucinda.
Thank you, Lucinda. I just realized when you said that I'm needing a break too. So let's everybody take 10. Well, half of us are gathered here. Does anybody have any good jokes they want to share?
Well, I have a story. Since you were talking about Gandhi earlier, every time I hear his name, I remember this thing I learned about him a long time ago that you might not be aware of. We all know that, he either wore sandals or he went barefoot, and he developed these really thick calluses on his feet. Mm-hmm. Also, he was a vegetarian, but he also fasted a lot. And sometimes he had bad breath. Mm-hmm. He was a super calloused, fragile mystic vexed with halitosis.
Oh, that is good. I like that. Super calloused, fragile mystic. What was the last part?
He was a super califragilistic vexed with halitosis.
Vexed with halitosis. I love it. That is really good. Oh, that reminds me of a story somebody shared with me. There was this from India. This man was visiting from India, visiting New York City, and there was a vendor who was selling hot dogs in one of those vendor carts, and the guy recognized him as another Indian looking person, And so he goes up to him and he said, make me one with everything. He wanted a hot dog with one with everything, but he said it in an Indian fashion. I guess it was in a Buddhist tradition. Make me one with everything. And so the vendor puts together a hot dog with all the stuff on it, all the trimmings and everything else, give it to him. The man gives him $10, and the guy puts it in his pocket. And the customer says, "Where's my change?" And the other Indian says, "All change must come from within."
That's cute.
Well, this isn't a joke. It's just a story about my son. He came this morning to mow my lawn for me, and he was out there and it just started pouring down rain. Mm-hmm. And he said, when he came in and he is soaking wet, he said, I was laughing, Mom, because I thought that's kind of a cruel joke to turn your sprinkler on me.
That was good. He's got a good sense of humor.
Recently, the whole Unity family knows me telling this, but I ordered worms for my frogs. Mm-hmm. And someone stole the package of worms. And I think that's was a good lesson, because he stole the worms.
Warren, we can't see you. You've got your camera up too high.
Because I'm feeding my face.
I hear you. Well, you know what? I actually brought my coffee in here. And yeah, so hope you guys don't mind. Usually I actually bring a couple of bottles of water when I do my workshop. Okay, is there, Eva, are you back, or Eva's not back? Susan, are you here? Are you back, Susan?
I am. I have my mouth full, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm just getting ready to start. I want to make sure. Chris, are you here? Chris has never responded. She may not be here. Jim, are you here? Okay, so Chris and Jim may not be here. We'll see. All right.
I'm here.
Okay, great. And okay, so anyway, we're going to continue. Basically, the two states of energy that we'll be talking about are first one is universal energy. Universal energy is unshaped, it is non-directed, and it is neutral energy. And remember earlier I said I'm going to touch on that very briefly in the next section. Actually, the truth is, I'm calling it neutral energy, but in reality, there is always a slight positive charge to neutral energy. Okay, so I'm going to put down here, it's a slight positive. Okay, and the reason I believe this is because what we're calling universal energy is God energy. So there has to be a slight positive. And my proof that there's a slight positive, how about look at evolution? Why does evolution happen? There's got to be some constant positive affecting everything. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, by a majority of 1-0. Okay, it makes sense. That's good. All right, so when universal energy, okay, so it is everywhere present, even in space, even in the vacuums of space, universal energy is there, okay? Remember we went through the different types of invisible energy. Even in space, we have this universal energy. Okay, it is everywhere. And it is shaped by consciousness. Okay, it is unshaped, non-directed energy, but our consciousness shapes it. And once it is shaped, It's now called, well, I'm calling it directed energy. Okay, directed energy has a charge. It could be positive or negative, and it even might be somewhat neutral, but it has a charge and it has a mission. And it always comes back to the sender fulfilled. Once you have directed energy, basically, and here's what happens is universal energy is shaped by our consciousness. It radiates out from us. The universe says yes to that energy, and that energy is now directed energy. Once we shape it by our consciousness, it's now directed, and it comes back to us fulfilled. Directed energy has adapted to a person's consciousness or a group's consciousness. It has a mission, and it always goes forth to accomplish its directive. So in other words, directed energy fulfills the intention of the charge that it carries. Does that make sense? And here's how it looks, in my opinion.
Could you
I'm going to
make that
give.
statement again?
Okay. Directed energy always fulfills the intention of the charge that it carries. So if it's a positive charge, it fulfills it. If it's a negative charge, it fulfills it. It's kind of going back to what Einstein said, that we live in a friendly universe, and the friendliness is that you're going to understand it better in this next illustration. Okay. Okay, dear ones, I call this the flow of life, and here's how it works. Every one of us is a channel, like a piece of PC pipe or a piece of water hose, okay? And basically what happens is we basically, by our thoughts, take universal energy, we impregnate it with our consciousness, transforms it into directed energy. Okay, so all this happens by our thoughts and words and our actions, but basically, and that goes out into the universe. The universe always says yes to our energy. I'm finding out how many of my pens don't work anymore. Oh yeah, this is great. I think I have to get a whole new set going here. All right, let's do that. When it goes out to the universe always says and can only say yes to our energy. And then that in turn causes the energy to now come back to us, fulfilled. So whatever we're putting out, the universe says yes, and that comes to us. Now, watch this. As you sow, what happens?
You reap.
So shall you reap. As you believe it in your heart or in your soul or in your mind, be it done unto you. This is the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Make sense?
Yes.
Rick, I'm really glad you're awake. Thank you, sir. Okay, bottom line is this flow of life, literally, this carries tremendous implications in all aspects of life. So basically, how we think, speak, and act is what we're going to experience. So one of the things that I tell people is we are always parenting our future self because of this dynamic. The things we think, say, and do today affect who we are tomorrow and how we show up tomorrow. So this is called the flow of life. And basically, we're taking universal energy and by our consciousness, shaping it into directed energy. It's not a very good E. Any questions on this?
No.
Okay.
I want to make a comment. I'd like to make a comment here.
Yeah, go right ahead.
What just occurred to me is, if we're taking universal energy and it's flowing through us and we're directing it through us, it's kind of like that's all there is. That there is only that universal energy. And I don't know, I don't know if I know where I'm going with this, but that there is only this universal energy, God or whatever it is, and it wants to flow through us. And as it flows through us, it manifests according to the way we channel it. So if we're a twisted pipe, it's going to come out twisted. And if we're a clear channel, it will come out clear. Am I making any sense?
Not only making sense, that there's a beautiful insight, and you nailed it. You've got it, Marilyn. You nailed it. Yes, that's exactly it. It's all God, and it literally is all good. But because we have free will, we could shape it any way we want.
Yeah.
We can use our energy wisely, or we could misuse our energy or misdirect our energy. We have the option, because of free will, of creating evil if we choose.
Yeah.
Okay. Now remember, evil of itself has no power. There is no such thing as evil of itself. Okay. It's kind of like darkness. There's no such thing as darkness of itself. Darkness is always the absence of light. In fact, one of my very first ministers, Paul Funk, he used to say that if you're in a totally dark room, one match in a totally dark room is a majority, because if you light that match, it's no longer total darkness. Wherever the effect of that match goes, there is light. But if you take out the match, now you've got darkness. Darkness is the absence of light. Evil is the absence of good. A dear friend of mine, has anybody here ever heard of Peace Pilgrim?
Yes.
Okay, well, Peace Pilgrim used to stay at my house when she used to travel through Florida. Anyway, Peace used to say that you overcome evil with good, because evil of itself has no power of itself. It has to be created by someone or something. That's just the same thing with darkness. Has to be created by taking away the light. Okay. One match in a room is a majority. Okay, so basically that's how it works. Now, the question is, because we understand how powerful, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were very, very big on the power of affirmation, the spoken word. Are you aware of that? And they used affirmations extensively in early Unity, back in the, when they were first getting started in the late 1800s, early 1890s. And then, of course, in the very early 1900s, affirmation was a huge part of their services, their classes, their lessons, their everything. And so I'm very big on affirmation, because I understand the kind of the logic behind it. Like, this is kind of the logic behind, this is kind of an illustration of what the law of mind action is really about. And sometimes it helps people to understand that better. And the way this works is, our mind is like a giant computer. So it has all this stuff that's been programmed in it. Some of it is good programming, some of it is bad programming. And basically, well, what I usually say is that all of us, within our consciousness, we have what I call a barcode. Remember the barcodes on all the products that you buy? There's this
Yes.
barcode, and they scan the barcode, and that tells them what the product is, the size of the product. It tells them all the information is in that barcode. So anyway, all of us in our consciousness, we have a barcode, and some of the barcode is good stuff, and some of the barcode is bad stuff. Now, here's the interesting thing. A lot of people go to workshops for like prosperity or healing or different things, and they sometimes learn some affirmations, and some people use the affirmations, but much of the time they don't experience a tremendous shift in their life experience. I don't know if you've ever noticed that or observed that, but that is what I've observed many times. And the bottom line is, part of the challenge is that people have they have this barcode inside of them, and it's not being addressed. And saying affirmations, that's very powerful, but you also have to get rid of the garbage that's in your subconscious. And that's one of the things that Myrtle did. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Myrtle's process of healing, remember, she was given 6 months to live by medical doctors. And the bottom line is, what she started out doing when she did her 6 to 8 hours of prayer and meditation a day, she started out by first asking forgiveness of all the parts of her body temple that she could name. Please forgive me, liver, for calling you sickly and weakly. Please forgive me, bones. Please forgive. She was asking forgiveness for all the different things that, for her entire life, up to the first 41 years of her life, she had called it sickly and weakly. So she asked for forgiveness. And what she was basically doing is she was taking out some of the bad programming that was in her barcode. Okay. Now, see, that's part of the process that is very important, that a lot of people bypass. The forgiveness piece, the get rid of the garbage part. And the affirmations are going to accentuate the positive, sure, but you also have to get rid of the negative, because be it done unto you according to your belief. When you put that energy into the universe says yes. If your barcode has a lot of negativity in it, guess what? The energy that you're sending out is a replication of your barcode. It's a replication of your total consciousness. So if you have some garbage in your consciousness when you're sending it out, guess what's going to come back to you? Garbage. Garbage is going to go back to you regardless of your affirmations, because your belief system has garbage in it.
Isn't some of that unconscious, though? Comes from your subconscious.
Yeah, a lot of it is in your subconscious. Yes, you don't even know the stuff that's in there. I'm going to share what happened. Really made me aware of how powerful our subconscious is. I took a trip to 1970. Remember, I had gotten married in college. Got this book. Mine was kind of learned about unity, but there was no unity church in Gainesville. Gainesville, Florida is where my wife and I were living at. really harmonized with me. So in going to Unity Village, I walked into my first metaphysical bookstore. I'd never even heard the term metaphysical before. And so, and that didn't really say it was a metaphysical bookstore, but years later I realized that's what I walked into. I was so blown away by the books there, books that I had I'd never seen anything like it, that I bought 16 books. And of course, my wife thought I was crazy, and that was that was a little bit of a thorn in her side that I would buy so many books. And bottom line was, I had really harmonized with Catherine Ponder. I don't know if you know of Catherine Ponder, but she wrote a book, Open Your Mind to Prosperity, and I bought that book. It's now out of print, but anyway, she talked about the importance of forgiveness, and she actually had a little forgiveness thing in the book, and which I used to say every day, several times a day. And the bottom line was, she recommended that. She said, say that at least once a day, make your commitment, say it as many times as you want, but commit to doing it once a day minimum. And that was probably the first time in my life that I actually listened to another person's suggestion, let alone an author who I didn't even know, wouldn't even talk to. I read it in the book. Because I was kind of a hard-headed dude back then. I'm a Taurus, which one of our characteristics, one of my characteristics used to be that I was kind of stubborn and hard-headed. And so I had to really go through a lot of experience with that. But anyway, here's what happened. I started doing this little forgiveness thing every day, and several times a day I would take this book to work with me, and I'd read it at least once or twice a day at work, read it at least once or twice at home. So I'm doing this every day for many, many weeks, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks. I don't even know how long it was. But one day I'm in my office. Now, this is after weeks of doing this. I'm in my office doing this forgiveness treatment. And at the very pit of my stomach, a tiny little bubble starts coming up very, very slowly, almost like a bubble coming out of the muck of a pond. You know how it comes up real slowly at first because it's breaking through the muck. So anyway, this thing is coming up very slowly. The book is open, my eyes are closed because I've had this thing memorized now for weeks previously, but I'm still carrying it back and forth to the office and to my home. Anyway, I'm saying that this thing, and the bubble's coming up, and it's gradually expanding just a little bit as it's rising, and it's coming up through the middle of my body cavity, and comes through my neck, and I'm saying this forgiveness thing, and I'm thinking, it was like maybe an hour or so after I had lunch, and so I'm thinking it might have been something that I ate that just weird stuff. It comes up through my head, and then it comes out of my third eye position. I didn't even know what third eye was back then. Anyway, it comes out of my third eye position, and now from a tiny bubble, it's now about a little bit bigger than a silver dollar. As it comes through my forehead, I could see it's a pure white light, and inside the light is a face. As soon as I saw that face, my entire body reacted instantly. Instantly. I don't know if any of you ever read Maxwell Maltz's book called Psycho-Cybernetics. Have any of you ever read that book or heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, anyway, with Maxwell Maltz, one of the things that stayed with me from this book, I read this many years ago, was that not only does our conscious mind have memory, but all the cells of our body has memory as well. And so as soon as this thing comes out of my forehead, this ball of light, my entire body instantly reacted. My hands got sweaty and clammy. My hair stood on end, and my stomach went into a knot because the face I saw, I recognized as somebody I hated, but it was from so far back in my childhood, I couldn't remember one time we interacted together, although I'm sure he used to bully me or pick on me or take my toy or whatever he did. So it was somebody I actually didn't like, and my whole body reacted to that instantly, that quickly. Anyway, what happened was, as soon as I kind of came to myself, I said, wait a minute, that's not the same person he was as a child, And I'm not the same person I was as a child either. I don't let people abuse me or mistreat me anymore. And so the bottom line was, so I said, I don't hate him. I literally said, I do not hate him. As soon as I said that, this guy's, but now it's out to about here and it's about the size of this thing. And as soon as I said that, his face turned into like 1,000 pixels. You know what the pixels are? The dot that make up a photograph. 1,000 pixels, and they all start floating away. And when they got out to about this radius, they all disintegrated like a meteorite coming into the Earth's atmosphere, just totally disintegrates. Every one of these pixels disintegrated. And this white light, this white ball of light now is like a vacuum. And it almost has a sensation of drawing my forehead toward it because it is a vacuum. There's nothing there. And I was startled and shocked, actually, because, see, I've actually been a gentle soul my whole life. If somebody would pick on me or give me a hard time, my tendency wasn't to get revenge. It was to get away from that person. Don't get around them again. That's how I was growing up. And so when this thing came out of me, that I hated a person, first of all, that surprised me, but I was shocked that was inside of me. You know, I could understand if it was inside, like maybe Richard or Marilyn or, you know, one of you guys, but for me, this very gentle, peaceful, loving soul, I was surprised. And what that told me, and I realized Spirit was giving me a lesson, that told me that everybody has garbage in their subconscious that they don't know is there. I couldn't even tell you the name of this guy. It was so far back in my childhood, I couldn't even tell you his name. And I couldn't remember one time when we interacted. I had my mind had totally blocked it out, but it was there. And I realized that's why we sometimes meet a person and we're not that comfortable with them. We've got some garbage in our subconscious that some characteristic of this person reminds us of something that's in our subconscious that we don't even know is in there. And that's what's out picturing in our energy. We're uncomfortable with the person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well, anyway, that was my experience, and it was very, very powerful for me. Very powerful. Now, again, this was years before I started doing anything with the workshop. You know, all these little things, Spirit gave me all these different life lessons. In fact, Spirit gave me this flow of life chart. I mean, this is all stuff that Spirit gave me over a period of many, many years. And when I got to put it all together, it all fit like a really well-fitted glove. Okay, questions about garbage in our subconscious? Anything at all? Questions about how it affects our flow of life?
Well, you can choose to eradicate that stuff from your mind, but if you don't know it's there, then what?
Good question. We could turn it over to Spirit. We could do, in fact, you know what? Where are we doing here? Oh my gosh. It's already after 2:30. Let's see. I didn't think we were going to get a chance to get to it, but there's a whole bunch of stuff I had to get through to get you to the point where we're ready to start doing a very, oh shoot.
It's 12:30 here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm in Eastern. I'm in Central Time Zone. Yeah, so we're 2 hours difference.
If it gets to 2:30 here, we'll let you know.
Well, guys, I got some really great news for you. I can't give you everything else because I didn't send you all the information. When I do this workshop, everybody gets a workbook. You guys don't have the workbook, so we can't really do the tools because nobody has the material. And that's good. And I knew that was a part that was the second part of the workshop. So it's like we're kind of in an interesting place here. I'll tell you what I can do though. Seeing our 2 hours is pretty much up. Let me do this. Shoot. There's no way to jump right into it.
We could put a button mark in it and say to be continued.
I'm sorry, what, hon?
we could put a bookmark in it and say to be continued.
Yes, absolutely.
We're all home anyway.
Well, the bottom line is that basically we have to turn it over to spirit to get rid of the garbage that's in our subconscious. I mean, we could guide it and direct the energy, and that's all ultimately what we're going to do. But that will clean up our subconscious and our total consciousness, and that'll clean up our flow of life chart so that we are. There's a scripture verse that when I first started thinking about it, I thought, my God, it's really making us incredibly responsible. Do you remember the verse that says, even the hairs on your head are numbered? Anybody remember
Yes.
that verse? Okay,
Yes.
dear ones, that is saying that's the level of responsibility we have for our life and for the direction of our life and for the energy we're putting out into the universe. Even the hairs on our head are numbered. And Charles Fillmore said something the first couple of times I came across it. I'm thinking, God, Charlie, why did you say it like that? So basically, he was saying something that that us being in a higher level with an awareness of our divinity. Now, I'm totally paraphrasing this. Charles didn't say anything like this. Being aware of our divinity and acting from that awareness is our responsibility. Nothing less is expected of us. And the way it came out, it was so adamant and so powerful. I'm thinking, God, Charlie, why didn't you say what's eventually desired for us or something like that? But he said, no, we're responsible. He was so adamant about that. And, you know, just recently I started rereading Charles Fillmore. I read him when I first got into Unity. Actually, when I first got into the Unity, remember I told you I bought 16 books? It was, I mean, that was a lot of books. I'm carrying them out of this bookstore. And I tried reading Charles Fillmore, at least 12 to 20 times. I would read a paragraph or less, and I'd say, what in the heck is he talking about? I'd close the book, put it away, go back to my Catherine Ponder or Jack Boland or, or Eric Butterworth, my guru. And the bottom line is eventually, well, I was the volunteer spiritual leader of a Unity study group, Unity of Gainesville, Florida, when I got out of college. And basically, after leading that group for 5 years, it was literally about 6 or 7 years later. I tried to read Charles several times when I first bought all these books. It wasn't until literally about 5, 6, 7 years later, and I've been teaching a class every Thursday night for our study group. And basically, after a period of years, I picked up Charles Fillmore, and everything he said made sense. But it took me a tremendous amount of being involved in Unity teachings before I could understand Charles, because I was coming out of Catholicism, which was steeped in guilt and shame and unworthiness, moving into Unity, which is a totally different consciousness. It's basically empowerment and honoring our divinity and honoring ourselves and honoring our sisters and brothers. And so basically there was a tremendous shift of consciousness that had to take place before I was able to understand Charles Fillmore, even though he is writing in Old English. So the bottom line, not Old English, but 18th century languaging. The bottom line is that literally about a month or so ago, I started rereading Charles Fillmore, The 12 Powers of Man, Christian Healing. And of course, I'm rereading Eric Butterworth, one of my all-time favorite teachers. In fact, I call Eric the greatest metaphysician of the 20th century. He was just totally aware of the big picture of life, and he would say it so clearly and easily. Have any of you read Eric Butterworth?
Yes.
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 Yeah, I mean, he is so easy to read, and I mean, he really just says it like it is, and he's always right on the money. Yeah. So anyway, but Charles is just amazing. He is truly, in my opinion, he's an American mystic, and several others have called him that as well. But as you really get to maybe even reread him and understand where he's coming from, he was just amazing. Have any of you ever seen or heard of the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary?
Yes.
Yes.
We have some in our library. We have one in our library, I believe.
Have you all seen that book?
No.
Give me about 20 seconds here.
Hey, Barb, when do you want to come by?
I don't know. Maybe sometime this afternoon, maybe tomorrow.
Okay, just let me know.
Okay.
You're going to do questions today too, do you know?
Sorry?
Barb, were we going to also have a time for questions, not necessarily on the workshop, but just in general?
Yes. And then attached to your
17.
invitation, your
Right, I saw that. I saw that.
Okay, dear ones, this is a Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. It is basically, it has all the proper names in the Old Testament, and it gives the reference about what the story part is. It tells what was going on at the time, and it gives the metaphysics of each one of these proper nouns. And the bottom line is, if you're going to study the Bible, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary is one of the books you have to have. This is written by Charles Fillmore back, I think it was in 1940, I want to say 41, I could be wrong. Anyways, it was written by Charles. Can you imagine this book? A whole book written by Charles. This book alone is a lifetime of task. And then the other book is these are the Revealing Word. If you've heard of this, this is basically a lot of other aspects of Scripture. But this is like angels and the frankincense, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and all that stuff. It gives the metaphysics of all of those other words as well. But these are from Charles Fillmore's writings and classes. This was written by Charles Fillmore. But this book is an absolute necessity if you're going to really get into the Bible. And actually, both books are a necessity to really get into the Scripture. Anyway, yeah, the Bible's just an amazing thing. All right, so for those of you that are so impatient, you'd like to get more of the stuff, I told you I had a lot of people that had, well, actually, the first 10 years I've been doing this workshop, people used to ask me, do you have a book? And I'd tell them very gently, and no, I didn't put a book together. And basically, I was in St. Petersburg, Florida. I was living in California at the time. I was doing a workshop at a very large Unity church in St. Pete, and we had a really good turnout. And what happened is afterwards, about the third or fourth person in line after the workshop, there's always like a dozen or so people that want to talk to you and share a hug with you and all that. The bottom line is just about the third or fourth person in there, he asked me, where can I buy your book? And I kind of heard that, Ron, you really have to write this book, even though I didn't want to write a book. I knew it was just kind of, but then about the third or fourth last person in the line who wasn't there when the first guy asked me, she says, where can I buy your book? That 2 in a row in one night. And since that time, nobody ever again asked me, do you have a book? Everybody from that point on said, where can I buy your book? And so after hearing that for longer than I want to admit, I finally said, okay, I've got to write this book. So I finally, using the law of attraction wisely, I don't know if you can see the title, if it's glaring or not. Using the law of attraction wisely. And basically you can get this through Balboa Press or Amazon. And basically this is the whole workshop in print because so many people had asked about it. And the people that have really pushed to get the book are the people that had physical healings and relationship. They wanted the book. The folks who've taken my workshop and had bought this book, they said the book is a tremendous help because in this 4-hour workshop, you get so much information, you really can't retain it unless you take really, really great notes throughout the whole thing. But it's all good. So anyway, if you're interested, you can get Using the Law of Attraction Wisely through Balboa Press or through Amazon. And I don't know who else carries, but I know those two do carry it. Unity Village did have the book in stock, but they were buying it through me. Every time I went to the village, they would get a bunch of copies. And several Unity churches have copies of the books, but those are the churches that I had visited, and then the bookstore manager acquired books for their bookstore. So, but anyway, so that's another possibility for you, or you could just hang on, and because I'm assuming that I'm going to come up there and do the workshop for you one way or another, either as your minister or as a guest or someday, one way or another. Yeah, because I actually, when I don't have a pulpit ministry, I travel throughout the United States and Canada doing the workshop. And actually, even when I have a pulpit ministry, every once in a great while, I'll still do the workshop somewhere, and including the church. Wherever I'm the senior minister, I always do the workshop there as well. So anyway, those are both options.
We
So
need to hear general questions, not
please do.
Not related to the workshop, just
Oh,
general.
absolutely, yes.
From us to you. Okay, the floor is open, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody has any questions?
I have a big life
go ahead.
question.
Go ahead, Lucinda.
My turn? Okay.
Nope, can't hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute my.
Lucinda, you got to hold your
Okay.
space thing down all the while you're talking.
Right, I just unmuted myself, so I don't have to hold the space
Oh,
bar
okay,
down.
great.
That was also difficult when we were doing this. I had to use one hand. Space bar.
Oh yeah, we could have did the unmute thing. I'm sorry. You see, these are the little things that I have to learn yet.
We
It's
are
okay.
all learning new things here. Okay, so this is kind of a long question. I hope that's okay with everybody. But they all know.
It's totally fine. You can make it as long as you like. But hey, but 11 p.m. I'm closing the computer, regardless of where we are.
What time is that here? Is that 1 o'clock?
That'll only be 9 o'clock where you guys are. Okay, I'll make it midnight my time.
Okay, well, they all know my story that I was moving to Hawaii. I sold my furniture. My house had a buyer. Everything was packed in priority mailboxes. Everything else was in trunks that I was taking on the plane with me. My brother was going to go with me because I'd had hip surgery. I couldn't handle my luggage. I had a place I was going to house sit for 6 weeks. My apartment there was set up to open 4 weeks after I arrived, giving me 2 weeks of transition between house sitting, moving to my new apartment. My car was given away. Everything was in divine order and everything just bang, bang, bang. Everything was happening. And then COVID happened. So now I'm unpacking my boxes. I'm sitting in the middle of stuff that was supposed to be in a moving sale. Meanwhile, I'm putting in a garden, making good friends with my neighbor. I don't know what's going on. I don't know which way to turn, And I guess the question is, did I create that?
Okay, and let me share this. The most important thing for you to do is to be aware of this divine presence that's within you and all around you and is in the midst of this situation. We don't know why a situation happens. Basically, life gives us what I call pop quizzes often. And once we think we have a lesson down, every now and then there's going to be a pop quiz to see if we really have the lesson down. And we don't know it's a pop quiz till we're halfway in it. And sometimes we already know we failed if we recognize, or we've done glowing, we've done straight A work. So the bottom line is whatever is going on doesn't matter. What's happening around us and in our situations is not nearly as important as how we deal with it. Are you coming from fear, which is ego induced? Are we coming from knowing there's this divine presence, God is there, God is good, and calling it good? Now, this is really important, to call it good in spite of the appearances. A dear friend of mine basically went on vacation. She came back and she was devastated to learn that while she was on vacation, the dentist fired her. She was a dental hygienist, or what, a dental hygienist, I think, dental hygienist or dental technician. I don't know what her title was. But anyway, she was gone. And fortunately, she told me about this practically crying. And I said, listen, is God present? And she said, yes. So I'm going to ask you, is God present, Lucinda?
Yes.
Okay. So if God is present, is good present?
Yes.
Okay. You hesitated a little bit, but it's okay. You got the right answer.
No,
This is good.
I was thinking
Okay.
of all the good.
If God
All
is
the- there's so
present
much
and good is present, what I want you to do is don't judge by the appearance. Stay focused on God the good and keep calling forth God the good to show you your next step. Just keep inviting Spirit to totally show you the next step, but keep calling for it. This is God's goodness at work flowing through me. God's goodness is in the situation, and however it unfolds, there will be a blessing for me. Stick to your guns. Do not judge by appearances, okay? Because appearances are all over the place. But God is within you. God is within the situation, therefore good is there. So stick to your guns.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, dear.
I'll mute myself again.
Okay. There was somebody else that had a question too. There was actually 3 of you at once. Who else?
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to let everybody know that I had bought 2 copies of your book already. And Sandy has one.
Where did you get the copies of my book?
I bought them on Amazon.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
All right. Very, very proactive, Leslie. I love it. So actually, you could have co-taught this class with me.
Oh, no.
Because the whole workshop is in that book.
It is. So, I mean, I think Sandy's probably had it long enough that she would be willing to share it if anybody wants to look at it. So that's a thought.
Wonderful.
So.
Let's see. I have a question. In thinking about all the good and the abundance, what makes you most excited about the opportunities in Yakima? And if we were to jump 6 months or a year ahead, what would you hope to see?
Well, what excites me, several things excite me about Yakima. Although I don't know Yakima, I've been through Washington a couple times. I really like the Northwest. I've done workshops in Bend, Oregon, Coos Bay, and several places in the Northwest. I've never been to Yakima, obviously, but I love the Northwest. And Richard and I talked several times over the course of getting involved with the Zoom meetings, which I've been about a couple of them now. And basically, there's a lot of really exciting things in there that that appeal to me. Richard, for example, is a sky watcher. Rob is an amateur astronomer, which I used to be an amateur astronomer. I probably forgot most of what I used to know because my scope has been packed for over 10 years because I've always lived in areas that had too much light pollution. And well, there's a lot of reasons, but there's a lot of really exciting things about Yakima. But the reason I applied to Unity of Yakima, I read the entire church packet, and something that you guys put in your packet really appealed to me, and it really delighted me. And so basically, I'm very open to whatever. And then of course, everybody I've met, and I've actually spent a lot of time with Richard. And actually even Chris spent a lot of time with me trying to help me do something else on the computer a while back. And so I don't know if it's this Chris or a different Chris, but a Chris. Oh, your administrator, Chris.
Right.
Is that who
She's
this
our
Chris
only
is?
Chris.
I'm sorry, what?
She's our only Chris.
Oh, okay. So that's who's on the, well, her name is on it. I don't know if she's on or not, but
Yeah.
okay. So anyway, yeah, so there was a lot of really appealing things. And I don't know how to say this, but everything just felt right all along. You know, there was a little bit of frustration on my part because my computer wouldn't do what it was supposed to be doing with the initial Zoom stuff. And but that frustration was just like had nothing to do with any of the other energies about Yakima or the people that I've encountered. And yeah, so that was really good. There's some things that there's some things that would need to be tweaked a little bit in this whole situation, but it's nothing that is not doable. So it's all good. And but the bottom line is, I just have always had a really good feeling about Yakima. So much so that I actually, when we first started having I was supposed to initially be there for your Sunday service on March 29th. I was going to do I was going to do a 2-hour workshop on the 28th of March. I was ready to start inviting I know a couple of people in Washington. One of them is a dear friend of mine, a Unity minister, and just a couple people. And yeah, so anyway, the bottom line is that was before I learned that, Washington was in a kind of state of lockdown. And so my friend is actually living in Seattle, which is not it's a very high risk area. So I actually opted not to even tell her about it because I didn't want any repercussions with anybody from, so the bottom line is, but I don't know, there's just been a very good harmony about the energy that I've experienced with Yakima.
So Reverend Ron, one of the questions that just popped up was what is it that needs, in your mind, to be tweaked?
I don't think we should talk about that at this point. I think that would be between the board and myself, and I'll address it if we get to that point. But it's basically everything is workable. I probably shouldn't even said the tweaking thing, but basically when you're putting together a contract, all sides had to be considered and everything has to be done. It's very, very minor stuff. It's not a big deal. It's just stuff that wasn't in the packet, and some of it has to do with the priorities. I want to make sure the priorities are in harmony with what I think priorities should be. And so, because I've learned from experience that even church boards sometimes are very ego-centered and ego-driven, and I'm not going to go into another church like that again. I'll put it this way: I'm not knowingly going to go into another church like that. I've already decided that previously. So it's basically
on my ego.
I'm sorry, what, hon?
I'll work on my ego.
Okay, actually work on your God, and that'll be better.
There, okay. The other question is that Susan asked a second part to her question, and it was, in 6 or so months, what do you see yourself doing within this church?
Well, basically, my concept of ministry is to be a stepping stone to help people to wake up to the divinity inside of them and to live from that divinity. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to really be involved in community. I've done a lot of community-wide events and activities. I've hosted them, sponsored them, all kinds of stuff. And the churches that I've been senior minister of, for example, one of the things that I really love, I don't know if there's any other Unity churches that are close to you. I actually read enough profiles. I don't remember the exact details on this aspect, but I don't think you have any Unity churches close to you, do you?
No.
Okay. Basically, what I do, like in one of the churches, we had several Unity churches that were not too far. So I'm always part of an interfaith ministerial group, and if it's basically just a Christian ministerial faith group. I actually have reached out and invited rabbis, and I've picked up a Native American.
Ours is ecumenical. Actually, it's faith-based, so it includes everybody.
Good.
Including our
okay. So one of the things that I have hosted a couple of times has been an interfaith Thanksgiving service, and usually
we have that.
Okay, that's perfect. So that's one of the things. Another one is a circulation day where people bring in things that are in good working condition, and then we just offer them to the community. They could come in. They can make a love offering if they want, but they don't have to pay anything. We just put things back in circulation that are good usable things that are sitting in closets and attics and are not being used by whomever. And we do that. And there's some profound experiences we've had with that, with people that are literally been teary-eyed when they've gotten things from the circulation day. I like to do an annual pet blessing. I like to do an annual renewal of vows, and these are all community-wide events, okay? And then like to have a lot of good social things. For example, we've had, I've hosted several times 50, 60 parking lot dances in this, in the appropriate seasons. And I brought in an instructor to give a basic East Coast swing lesson, which, the old jitterbug is 50, 60 type music. So depending on what's available, I like to have social things, but I like a lot of camaraderie type things where you have community-wide experiences, like the annual renewal of vows. That would be marketed, and we'd bring anybody who wants to renew their vows, and we'd have just a big party doing that. The pet blessing is very good. Oh, another one is a memorial thing honoring our loved ones that have made their transition. That's another annual event that's community open. And so basically 6 months down the road, what I like to do is see a church grow, but for a church to grow, it takes a full desire to see a church grow. And see those are some of the things that I would like to know where people are. Should we move forward? Because I've actually been helping a very, very small church here in Illinois. They don't want to grow, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not for me. Okay, so it's like I'm about helping more people be inspired to wake up to their divinity and to live from that awareness of who they are. And that's one of the most powerful lessons I think I bring to the pulpit, is getting people to really affirm their true identity, which I've actually done with you previously, but I didn't do it as intently today because we didn't get to that part of the workshop. It is part of the workshop where we affirm our true identity, which I should have on the board for you guys, but you guys should know it. Well, those of you that heard me for the Easter service, I am a beautiful, beloved, empowered child of God. That's your true identity, regardless of what anybody else tells you, regardless of what business tells you, corporate tells you, regardless of what anybody tells you. If they're not saying I'm a beautiful, beloved child of God as your true identity, they're lying, or they really don't know. They probably really don't know. They're probably not lying. They just don't know better. So
Reverend Ron, do you have a personal vision and mission statement?
Oh yeah, you guys got that. And I'll tell you my personal mission. Okay, it's a tall order. My personal mission is to totally awaken to the divinity inside and to live from that divinity in all life situations. Now, that's been my mission for decades. I'm not there yet. I'm working on it. I'm getting better all the time, but I am a far cry from that. I want to get to the level where Jesus was in his consciousness. I'm not even close, but I'm working on it. And I'm going to keep moving forward. And my vision as a minister is to help everybody else wake up to their divinity and to live from that awareness. That's my goal as a minister.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have anything else?
I just have one more question.
Oh, you can have as many as you want. We're not on a time limit. Go ahead.
Well, I have one more question. I don't know about the rest of the community, but And that is, what is it? Oh, it's obviously a collaborative work for a minister and a church to grow together. So when you're looking at a church, what are you expecting from the congregation? What do you want from us?
That's a good question. I'm thinking, I don't know that I have any expectations of a congregation other than if they're coming to church, I would hope that they want to learn and grow, because that's why we're all here, to learn and grow. So if a congregation is attending church, they're probably interested in, if they're attending church and coming to some kind of our classes or spiritual stuff, our spiritual programs, then they're obviously here to learn and grow. And that's really, I guess, the biggest thing for me to see is to, well, another thing that really shows up is when people want to become members. That really tells you that you're really providing enough support, spiritual support, emotional support, whatever kind of support, but basically people are really interested in being a bigger part of our spiritual community. And to me, that is very exciting. I actually used to hold an orientation class before people become a member. I'd hold an orientation class. It would be like a half a day long, and it was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of really good things that happened. It was very educational. It was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of people jumped into different of our volunteer teams. And what happened was, over time, I think by the second or third one that I was holding, people that had been in Unity for years and years, they had heard about the orientation class being a lot of fun, and they asked if it's okay if they could attend, even though they're already a member. And so I said, of course. So basically, we actually announced anybody who wants to attend, you're welcome. And so we actually had a lot of previous members coming to our orientation, because you learned a lot about Unity. Basically has 3 different divisions, if you will. I explained the different divisions. I explained a little bit about Unity principles and Unity basics, and basically everybody got a chance to share a little bit too. So, and of course, there was food involved, of course. So anyway, make a long story short, it was just a fun thing, but it grew to be very, very popular. Originally, we had just like 9 or 10 people that were going to become members, but over time, we started having 15 and 20 people showing up. So I actually had to kind of curtail how much time they could share at the beginning. I had everybody introduce themselves, how they got into Unity, et cetera. And they'd have a couple of minutes or something like that. I had to cut it back down to like a minute and a half, because, when you get 15, 20 people, I don't want that to take up the biggest part of our orientation class, but it's all fun. See, I think Jesus said we should have life and have it abundantly. And so to me, that means that we should be celebrating life. So I try to celebrate life with everything. I think people respond to that. If you're having fun, I think that's a good thing. And you're learning and growing.
I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
Hi, Reverend Ron.
Hi, who? Oh, Chris.
Chris.
Hi, Chris.
So what do you see the board's role as, and what expectations would you have of them? Okay,
the board's role, as I understand it, is to be the kind of the guides for the church, where the church is going and all that stuff. And our role as the minister and board, I've always wanted to replicate the first board I served on. Now, I was the volunteer spiritual leader of the church, and they elected me president of the board. So I was both heads of the church, are both leaders of the church, both the board leader and the thing. But what happened was, we were, and because neither I nor anybody else that was on our board had any idea of how to do a church board. I made it a mastermind prayer group. Does anybody here know what mastermind group is? Jack Boland created that. Okay. I used to be really big on mastermind. So our whole board meeting every month was a mastermind meeting. And when we got to step number 6, that's where we actually opened the agenda for the board meeting. We did everything that the board does at a meeting, but we started with the first 5 steps of the mastermind. 6th step was our order, what do you call it? The order of the service thing. And basically, what happened to my screen here? I just lost my screen. Anyway, so the bottom line is my fantasy was always to just replace or replicate that first board that I served on. And it was just such a positive experience. And our church kept growing and growing and growing. And I really believe it's because we were a prayer team first and foremost. So for us to be all together and putting God as the head of the ministry, and everybody supporting that would be ideal. That would be the ideal board, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
And because I experienced it once, I know how powerful it is. Literally, our church, we'd go out and we would buy like 25 more chairs, and literally within a month or 2, we had to buy more chairs because they were all getting filled up.
How many boards have you worked with over the years?
Oh, geez. Well, I've worked on other boards as well as church boards, but I've been in what do you call it? Commercial
church
boards, not.
Yeah, no, I was thinking church boards.
Yeah.
How many churches have you served?
Probably 6 or 7, I guess. Well, some of them, like I've been invited to board meetings at this one little church I've been helping here in Illinois, but I'm not part of the board. But they invite me to attend their board meetings. They really don't want my suggestions, but they keep pretending like they do. It's interesting. They're all great people. I want you to hear that. They just have been running the church for so long. They just don't know how to have a minister help them, and that's okay. You know, they're good. Like I said, they're good people, and they don't want to grow. That's the biggest shortcoming, is that they really don't. Well, excuse me. A couple of the board members don't really want to grow.
What do you think it takes for a church to grow? What is it that they don't want to do to
okay,
make
I'll tell you the 3 things that make a church grow. Did you guys lose my vision? The vision of my picture here?
No.
Oh shoot! How come I don't have it anymore? What happened?
Click on the little camera icon. Click on the camera icon.
Well, right now all it says is launching. It's gone back to that previous screen. I don't know what. Let me see.
Well, we can still hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we may have to do that then. Anyway.
I can still see you.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, but I can't see anybody. I have a blank screen that says Zoom in front of me. It's like, man. Okay, Richard, do you have any suggestion? Oh.
He was right. Click on where it says Zoom video.
Rick, you're muted.
There is no Zoom video.
You may have gone to a different screen, so it may be behind the one you're looking at, or.
I went back, and now it's back to a muted, so it's not there. I don't know what happened. Huh.
Okay, Susan, I was trying to answer your question in chat.
Oh, sorry.
And I was just going to tell you yes, and then I lost my Zoom picture. It turned out that I had actually somehow got into the browser, the web browser. So I think what you want to do, Ron, is you want to make sure that just kind of minimize your web browser, and the Zoom is behind that.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Thank you, Richard.
Okay. I learned the hard way.
Yes, I do have to leave for another commitment, so I'll say goodbye to all now.
Yeah, this recording will be available. I'll clip off a little bit in the front I'll take the 10-minute break out, and the rest of it will be posted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye, Susan.
Thank you for being here, Susan.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Susan.
Bye, Susan.
Bye. See you all tomorrow.
Susan.
Okay.
Okay, I think I was asked a question when I lost the screen and I kind of went into a different consciousness. So what was the last question that I was getting ready to address? Do you remember?
It was just about what do you think a church needs to make it
Oh,
want
to grow. 3 things help a church to grow. The 3 things that are important. It's basically revolving around the Sunday service. You have to have a good, uplifting spiritual lesson. You have to have good music. You have to have good social activities. And people come to church usually for one of those mainly, but some come for 2 out of 3 and some come for 3 out of 3. So basically, if you cover those 3 bases very well, you should have a growing ministry. And of course, behind that, and this would be the board level, the conscience of putting God first. And if you do that, I don't see how a church could fail. Now that's my experience. And when you don't do that, I can easily see how a church could, not fulfill its light and not be the light that it should be. And I've seen that too. So it's really about what the people want. If the church wants to grow, there are very effective, very powerful, very fun ways to grow a church. Yeah.
Just one more question. This is about what ideas do you have on taking someone from membership to leadership in a church community?
Actually, what happens is there is a very gentle way to excite and inspire people to get into our ministry teams, which I call them angel teams. Some churches call them volunteer teams, but they're all angel teams in my opinion. And basically, as they get into that gets them a little bit more active in the thing. But the bottom line is, you just ask different people if they're interested in different things. Usually, people are very comfortable reading a daily word, or they're comfortable doing something else, or maybe reading the announcements, or just kind of very gently getting involved in that's part of leadership is like reading the daily word or doing the announcements, or maybe even just having an opportunity. Well, especially licensed teachers, they would always have opportunities to do classes and do counseling and things like that. So basically, it just depends on where people are in their consciousness, but it's a general process. At one of the churches, we had 6 people that were becoming licensed teachers, and I purposely set up all my classes as extra credit classes for people that are going through the licensing process, because as many extra credit classes they could get in their home church, that's less they have to do in the field or at Unity Village or wherever. This stuff has changed so much. It changes almost every second or third year. So I'm not up to what it is now. But when basically the churches that I've had in the past, I've always, if I'm going to do a class on, for example, what are some of the classes? Oh, the question of reincarnation. I made it a credit class, and so anybody who took it, if they were going to become a licensed teacher, they could take it for credit, and that would be an extra. That would be considered. I don't think they call it extra credit, but you have to have an elective. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, they have to have so many hours of elective classes. They have the required courses, but then you have electives. So I would pretty much have all of their electives covered before they had to go to the village for whatever they had to go to the village for. So that's the way I kind of like to do just things to help people that are moving in that direction. Another thing that I really have enjoyed is, do you guys have an active bookstore at your church?
Yes, we do.
Okay, do you have a bookstore manager?
No.
Oh, okay. So that's a position that would need to be filled in. It's somehow. So how do books get ordered and marked and put on the shelves? Volunteers?
Somebody does it.
Okay, magic. I like that. That works too. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, but anyway, if you have, that's another thing. When you have your team leaders together, what I like to do is meet with all the team leaders periodically, and one of the things I ask them to do is to have them create in their angel team meeting, have the team members create their mission statement and their vision statement. Those are two different things, and I explain it in great detail when I talk to the chairs of these departments, or the head, whatever you call them, the leaders. And so when you go back and have the team write their own mission statement and vision statement, that really empowers them at a much higher level than if somebody just hands them the mission statement and vision statement, because it's their ideas of what this ministry team is about. And so they bought into it because they've created it, and so they're going to be more excited to be part of that team.
Ron,
Yes,
this is Lucinda.
Hi, Lucinda.
It's not a question, but sadly, we have no licensed Unity teachers.
That's okay. That's a temporary situation, in my opinion.
And one other thing, you haven't really spoken much to having youth, or what a youth team should
Well,
look like.
basically, do you have children attending your service?
Not currently.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you have any youth education people in place?
No, not currently.
Okay, well, that's part of the situation is build it and they will come. If you don't have it, they can't come. So if you guys want to have a youth education program, you have to get people that are willing to be part of the youth education team. And if you build it, you'll get children. And if you don't build it, you probably won't get children.
Yeah, I think we're trying to get.
Do you have children?
Mine are all grown. Mine
Okay.
are my baby girl's 21. So no.
Okay.
And the
Well,
people,
she's actually, is that new gen 21? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Are you familiar with New Generation Unity?
Or X Gen? Yeah, I don't. I don't know.
Okay. Well, they didn't have that group when I was first ordained, and basically I've done several things with YOU. I was actually a YOU sponsor at Unity Village for a while. I've done things with Uniteens, and I've done lots of programs with the children in grade school. But I only know a little bit about New Generation from, I've met a couple of New Generation Unity people at like a conference or something like that. So I don't really know a lot about that. I know they're very important in the leadership and their programs are very important to help children of that age, or excuse me, young adults of that age, get more involved in their spiritual family. But I'm not that familiar with it. See that? I got a lot to learn and grow too.
I think we all do. We've been 2 years without a minister, and our spirits are lagging. That the same people do the same jobs. Like I'm the president of the board, but I'm also on the prayer team, and I'm also in charge of the platform committee. And the same people do the same jobs, and the same people. And we've worked really hard to keep a steady flow of inspiring messengers coming through, but we're getting tired.
Yeah, and you guys are doing a great job too, by the way, because I've understood that you have several really good speakers that are filling the slots, and that is really awesome. And so, kudos to you guys for doing the work. And it will get easier and it will get better. Of course, you guys don't have a minister, and that's the reason why it's so much work. But the minister will take some of that stuff off your hands, and the teams, once the teams are in place, that should alleviate some of this background work that you guys are doing. And I could understand, and I understand about getting burned out too. So it's like,
Yeah.
you got to be careful not to get burned out. That's important.
Anybody else? Okay, you have until 3 o'clock Monday to get your evaluations into Chris, and the board will make a determination Monday evening or Tuesday morning. So we thank you very much for spending your day with us, Reverend Ron.
You're welcome.
God bless you.
And I want to thank all of you for being part of this workshop.
I was wondering if we could, everybody mute their screen and we could say the prayer for protection to end.
I like that. Very good, very good.
But you have to mute your screen. You have to mute your.
Should I mute mine too?
Before we do that,
go ahead.
Before we do that, could I just say thank you, Ron, for being so very, very flexible and so open to trying different modalities.
Hey, we're all here to learn and grow, and I consider myself being one of the person that needs to learn and grow a lot of computer high-tech stuff. I'm basically old school Unity and old school technology too, so it's like, okay, but if we're open to learning and growing, things happen. Look what Richard did already. He already gently got me to get a new computer that's up to date. Now I can do Zoom. Thank you, Richard, by the way.
You're welcome.
So the next time we're together, Rick, we owe you a standing ovation for all your hard work on this. We really appreciate it.
Yes. Well, actually, standing ovation, nothing. How about if we just take a moment and say, "Dear Brother Rick."
Dear Brother Rick.
We love you. We love you.
We love you.
We bless you.
We bless.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
That's the way you are.
And we behold the Christ in you. We behold the Christ in you. Thank you, dear Brother Rick.
Thank
you, dear Brother Rick.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. We appreciate you too, Rick. Thank you very much, sir.
Now mute us, Rick, so we can do the prayer of protection.
Okay. Do you want me muted, or do you want me to say it out loud?
No. You go ahead and lead us.
Okay.
And everybody else, mute your screen, please.
I'll tell you what. Do you know that a lot of Unity churches have modified, like the peace song and a couple things? I actually modified James Dillett Freeman's prayer protection. So would you like to hear a tweaked version of the prayer protection?
I'm saying no, because we have certain motions that we do that were created when I was working with the children to help them remember it. We created motions. So we do those. You should see those, and then we will learn your version later, okay?
Okay, Lucinda, let me ask you this. It sounds like you used to be one of the youth ed directors or youth ed teachers.
Yes.
Very good. Okay.
I'm not anymore. I'm a drummer.
I like that. That's good. Well, should our youth education department take hold and take off, you could bring in a drumming session sometime. The kids would love it.
Yeah.
Does the church have drummings periodically?
Yes.
All right. I like that. Wow.
We have drum circle.
I like that.
We had a drum circle.
Okay. Well, listen,
Well,
even
yeah.
past tense is good. Past tense is good.
Okay, ready?
Okay, well, listen, I think if you guys are going to do hand gestures, am I going to be able to see it? Or are you guys doing it like in front of your face so I can see what you're doing?
Yeah.
Or okay. All right, sounds good. So let's go ahead and do our wonderful prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us.
The
The
love
love
of
of
God
God
enfolds
enfolds
us.
us. The
The
power
power of
of
God
protects
protects us.
The
The
presence
presence of
of God
God
watches
watches
over
us.
us. Wherever we are,
God
God
is
is, and all is well.
And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, God.
And thank you, Reverend Ron. Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Gee, I'll go get some lunch.
I think I'll go take a nap.